And I'm the executive director for the Los Angeles County Citizens Redistricting Commission. This is actually the first meeting of all 14 commissioners, so this is a very exciting time. I do want everyone to know this is being live streamed on YouTube. And a couple other just sort of background information. We are in the process of developing a CRC website. And so once that is finalized, and our hope is it can be activated by the end of the month, we will be able to be posting our agendas and all of that. We will have a Gov delivery. We will import the database for emails for people to sign up and all that over to the website. So we will be moving that from the executive office to this group. The other thing that I think is important for the public is at the bottom, you have a Q&A button. And you'll see later when it's time to make public comments, you can enter your public comments through the Q&A. And we'll give more instructions on that as well. And with that, we can proceed. Call to order. Ty will take roll call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the First County of Los Angeles Citizen Redistricting Commission regular public meeting for 2021. So today is January 13th, 2021, and the time is 7:05 p.m. I will begin this meeting by taking the roll. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Present.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Here.
Commissioner Daniel Maeda.
Present.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Present.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales.
Present.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Here. Present.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Present.
Commissioner Hylas Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Priya Sridharan.
Present.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Present.
Commissioner John Vento.
Present.
Commissioner Carolyn Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Present.
Thank you. We'll now turn the agenda over to Kayla.
Let me just mention, I am filling in until you are sworn in, you develop your bylaws, and you select your chair and your vice chair. So I am just an interim person helping you with these initial startups. You are going to have an oath of office, and it's an obligation to make sure you understand what your roles and responsibilities will be. And the CRC is really based on legislation passed by the California Senate in 2016 with Bill 958. And it really is an approach to handle redistricting after each decennial census. So we had the census in 2020, and 2021 is the year now to look at the successorial districts going forward. You are independent. You are not to be influenced by the Board of Supervisors. This is a very different model from how it's been done in the past. And we wanted to be sure that that the work is representative of the county's diversity, both in terms of how you are structured and eventually how you will redistrict the county. When you go through the redistricting process, you will need to make sure each district is reasonably equal in population, geographically continuous, and boundaries take into account topography, geography, cohesiveness, along with contiguity, integrity, compactness of territory, and communities of interest in the districts. I will next week on our agenda go much more in greater detail in terms of the timeline, and we will be working with you in developing the calendar for the year. But with that, I think we should move to the oath of office to officially bring all these people on board. So I'm going to turn this over to Twyla Kerr from the Executive Office in Los Angeles County.
Hello, commissioners. So at this time, may we please have commissioners raise your right hand so that I may administer the oath of office. Please repeat after me. I, and state your name.
I, Apolonio Morales.
Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
During such times
During such times
as I hold the office
as I hold the office
The office
of the County of Los Angeles,
of the
of the
County
County of
of
Los
Los
Angeles,
Angeles,
The County of Los Angeles,
Citizens Redistricting Commission,
Citizens Redistricting Commission,
do solemnly swear
do
solemnly swear
or affirm
or
or
affirm
affirm
affirm,
that I will support and defend
that I will
that I will
support
support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the
the
Constitution
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and
the Constitution of the State of
State of
California
California,
against all enemies,
against
against
all
all
enemies,
enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign
and
and domestic,
and that I will bear true faith
and
and
that
that
I
I
will
will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
allegiance
to the Constitution
to
to
the
the
to the
Constitution
Constitution
of the United States
of
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of California,
of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that
that
I
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without
without any mental reservation
or purpose
or
purpose of
evasion.
You're muted, Twyla.
okay, and that I will well and faithfully
And that
That I will well
and
and
faithfully
faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the
duties
duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which
on which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, Commissioners, you are duly sworn.
Yay.
you.
So our next item would be approval of the agenda that was posted on Friday and sent out to you all. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion
to approve the agenda. Sorry.
Okay, we have several people chiming in. I heard Commissioner Vento. I see a hand raised, Commissioner Holtzman.
Well, I guess we're discussing the motion. If you got second, because I have some suggestions for just moving around things on the agenda.
Okay,
I would like to move the introductions to the very next thing we do,
okay,
and move the report on the commission selection process to the end of today's agenda, because I think we have more important things to do, and I have some extensive comments to offer on that whenever it comes up. And so that would be to move 7B to after 7F. And I think that's about it.
okay. So Commissioner Vento had started a motion to approve the agenda. Do we want to revisit modifying the agenda to change the order so we can do the introductions first and move the selection process document to the end of the meeting, end of the agenda of item 7? Anyone in favor? Any comments, conversation, discussions? Yes, Commissioner Stetcher.
You're muted.
Yeah, there we go.
Unmute.
Is there a requirement for when public comment is solicited? I notice it's usually very early in the meeting. Can we put the introductions ahead of that?
I can defer to Holly.
Yes, legally for public comments on issues not on the agenda, you can tweak that a bit and have it follow the introductions.
If I may, the introductions for the beginning seems almost appropriate. I'm okay with that. I think, placing whatever was first at the end, I don't know about that, but, just the idea of introductions of all of us, we probably should take care of that.
Are you going to suggest that the motion be modified, Commissioner Obregon?
I guess that's what I just did.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So the
I-
motion would be to approve
placing-
the agenda with the change. Go ahead.
Placing that item 7, I'm sorry, I didn't know what item that was. I didn't hear that.
7B.
Yeah. So if I can just help, I think what's
Yes.
being discussed would be the possibility of a motion that would change the order of the items in 7 so that actually, I guess it would precede even the minutes, if I'm following Commissioner Holtzman, that you all just introduce yourselves as the first thing. Then we would go on to the next matter, which would be matters not on the agenda, followed by action items 7C, D, E, F, and then B would be at the end of the list.
Yeah, we would do the minutes, the consent items before
Pardon?
7, right?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Holtzman?
But I wasn't suggesting we skip over the minutes.
Okay, so you're suggesting we can still do the approval of the agenda with a new order. Can we cover public comment, general matters not on the agenda?
Yeah.
And we can cover the minutes. So the only thing you're suggesting is on agenda item 7 is we move B to the bottom.
Yes.
That's, okay.
That
So I'll
seems
go back to
logical.
Commissioner Vento, since you started the motion. Would you like to consider modifying your motion to move item B to the bottom of the list on
Yes.
7?
Yes.
So we have a motion to action item, discussion items A through F to move item F to be the last item on the agenda. Is there a second?
Sure, we'll give it a second.
Okay. All in favor? I guess we need to do a roll call, Ty.
So I will now take roll call. Commissioners, again, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Jean Franklin,
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel Maeda,
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza,
Aye.
Commissioner Apollonia Morales,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon,
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura,
Yes.
Commissioner Hylas Soto,
Yes.
Commissioner Saida Soto,
Yes.
Commissioner Priya Sridharan,
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher,
Aye.
Commissioner John Vento,
Yes.
Commissioner Carolyn Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. So the next item has to do with public comment for general matters not on the agenda. And I wanted to sort of go through the guidelines for both the new commissioners and also for the members of the public who are here. Since this is a virtual meeting, the members of the public will fill out a QA comment. We'd like you to enter your name, enter that you want to speak, public comment speaker, your name and your affiliation. If you are on the phone, you need to press *9 to raise your hand. And once called upon, you press *6 to unmute and speak. We are going to time it and keep it to 1 minute because we have a lot to cover in this meeting. And if you do not wish to speak, but you would like to have your comment read aloud, what you would then do is put in the Q&A button your name, affiliation, and what public comment you would like to have read aloud. Okay. And we have received, I believe, one written comment, which has been posted and shared with the commissioners. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen so we can receive comments from the public. And for the commissioners, you can see on the bottom the comments, the Q&A. So it looks like, Ty, we have one comment for agenda item 7, and we have another one regarding the bylaws when we get to that, but nothing on matters not on the agenda, it seems. So if that's in confirmation, we can proceed then to the next item. Okay. Okay. So we now have before us 2 minutes, one from the meeting of December 26th and another one from the meeting of December 28th. I'm going to suggest that it may make sense that the 8 commissioners who are in place for these 2 meetings in December be the ones to review and decide whether or not you will approve or modify these minutes. This is not to shun the other 6 commissioners who've joined, but this was not part of the meetings that you had been participating in at that time. So if you all are comfortable with that change, are there any discussion on that item, that change? Okay, so do we have a motion? The December 26th meeting minutes had been shared with you on the 28th. We made a revision. They've been resubmitted. Comments or a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Okay, so Commissioner Vento motions to approve. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, I hear Commissioner Franklin. We will do a roll call. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Obregon, do you have a question or are you
No,
stuck?
I was, I guess I was thirding it.
You were thirding it. That's great. Okay. Ty, we need to do a roll call then on the December 26 minutes.
I will now take a roll call. Commissioners, again, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Jean Franklin,
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel Maeda. Okay. Commissioner, please unmute your mic.
I can see your mouth moving, Dan. Maybe go on to the next
Yeah.
person.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Oh, I'm sorry, he's not part of the December. So just read
Oh,
off the 8.
okay.
Yes.
Of course. Commissioner
No
Nelson.
offense, Commissioner Mendoza.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura.
Yes.
Commissioner Hylas Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Yes.
And Commissioner John Vento.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the minutes of December 28th, this will be the first time you've had a chance to review those. Any questions, comments, motions? Commissioner Stetcher,
I move we accept the minutes from the meeting of December 28th.
is there a second?
I'll second.
And we'll do roll call again, just of the 8 commissioners.
So again, I will now take roll call. Commissioner Jean Franklin,
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel Maeda,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon,
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura,
Yes.
Commissioner Hylas Soto,
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher,
Yes.
and Commissioner John Vento.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so thank you, and we will move on. I wanted to go over the overall approach that independent legal counsel Holly Watley and myself worked on, and I guess I haven't officially introduced us all to the public. I'm Gayla Craich-Hartso, and I'm the executive director, and Holly Watley is the independent legal counsel here.
Oh.
And we probably won't go through this in every meeting once we get into a pattern of how to do it. But our thinking is we really want public engagement. And so for each of the items under 7, the item will be introduced. Staff will present their staff report, PowerPoint. You as commissioners can ask questions for clarification. And then we're going to open it up to public comment. So you can hear from the public their thoughts. And then once the public comment is closed, and we already know we have a couple of items that people want to talk to regarding item 7, that is at the time that you would then discuss and debate. And if you want to proceed in making any motions and votes, that's when it would occur after the public comment. Are there any questions on sort of doing in that order? So when we talk about 7A, 7B, 7C on, we're going to give the public an opportunity on each item to speak separately. Any questions on that? Are we good? Okay. Actually, I saw Nelson. This is a sign in American Sign Language saying yes. So it's a nice way for us to verbally get to know that. And this is thank you. Okay, so again, for the public, if in any of these items, we received 2 already, I know of for 7, you would fill out the Q&A and say you want to be a speaker, put down in the agenda number and letter, your name and affiliation. If you are in the phone, again, *9 to raise your hand, and when you're ready to be called upon, *6. We are going to limit these to 1 minute for these go around. If you do not wish to speak, you can still fill in the Q&A and just, again, your name, organization, and what comment you would like Ty to read aloud. Okay, so let's start with commissioner introductions. And again, I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint so everyone can see everyone's faces better. So I think we should begin with Commissioner Jean Franklin. We'll just go in alphabetical order.
Hi, everyone. Again, I only have 1 or 2 minutes to introduce myself. I have over 25 years of experience dedicated to community engagement and also public community advocacy. My interest really is with the faith community, working with churches and community-based organizations around workforce development as it relates to the formerly incarcerated. So my organization has a coalition of pastors and faith leaders advocating for criminal justice reform. And so basically that is my forte, community engagement, community activism, workforce development, organizing faith-based, community-based organizations around the issues related to criminal justice reform.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holtzman.
Hi, I'm David Holtzman. I've come to this commission after getting involved with the League of Women Voters a while back and in advocating for a more fair and free election system called ranked choice voting. I've been involved in civic affairs in Los Angeles for quite some time because of my interest in that. I know about state legislation because I worked for the state, but as a scientist, I worked in air pollution health risk assessment mainly for the state health department and the part of the Cal EPA that's called the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. I've worked as an environmental consultant, an attorney, went to law school after the science stuff. I'm really more of a scientist than a lawyer, a public health guy. And so just want to let you know that I know that there's some League of Women Voters people on the meeting tonight watching. I'm not here representing the League of Women Voters, but I was once president of the Los Angeles chapter, and I'm very interested in fair and free elections. Originally, I'm from Long Island, New York. I went to college in New Jersey, grad school in Michigan, and worked in Berkeley for the state. And then I moved to LA because the UCLA Law School was starting a program in public interest law and policy. So I'm a good government guy, and my interest is really just in getting this right and drawing fair districts. I don't know if there's time left, but does anybody have any questions for me? Anybody want to ask me anything about my background at this point?
So thank you, David, our Commissioner Holtzman. I think we'll move on to Commissioner Maeda because we do want to make sure we give everyone time.
Daniel Maeda, I go by Dan as well. I'm currently on the faculty of the UCLA Law School, where I help run a clinical program where we train and supervise law students to represent documentary filmmakers pro bono. Prior to that, I have about 30 years as a partner at a litigation firm doing entertainment and media industry litigation. My pro bono activities as a lawyer tended to focus on nonprofits that advanced representation and inclusion of Asian Americans in entertainment. I've lived and am active in Culver City for the past probably 35 years. I grew up in Gardena and Torrance, and also lived in Westwood and West LA. I'm the eldest son of a Japanese immigrant who came to America, learned English, and became a citizen. And at 91 years old, she has become somewhat obsessed with the goings-on in Washington, D.C. in the past week. My father, my late father, was born an American citizen in San Diego, but during World War II, he was forcibly removed from his home and put into a U.S. government-run incarceration camp. Nevertheless, despite that, he later joined the Army, and he's probably the most patriotic person I've ever met. He'd always talk about the importance of voting, and so that's probably why I'm so passionate about politics and policy, and I'm very interested in voting rights. As a lawyer, I read all the voting rights cases and know about gerrymandering and voter ID, et cetera. There's only a limit that we can do, I think, nationally in those areas, but I'm proud to say that in the County of Los Angeles, we have the opportunity as a Citizens Commission to actually draw the fair boundaries, as well as to ensure that each eligible voter in the county has an opportunity to have their voice heard and vote recorded. And I look forward to working with you all to make that happen.
Thank you, Commissioner Maeda. Commissioner Mendoza.
Thank you. I'm honored to have been selected to serve on this commission, and I will do my best to add value and make meaningful contributions. And this is a very important endeavor, and I will accordingly give it my attention, my full attention. I was born and raised in Los Angeles County, lived my whole life in Los Angeles County. Montebello is where I grew up. Attended Whittier Christian High School, attended the University of Southern California School of Business, and then ultimately as an undergraduate and as a graduate student, the USC School of Urban Planning and Development. And I had an internship while in the business school at USC with the LA County Board of Supervisors Executive Office, which was very, very interesting. And I've always been interested in the goings on, politics, society, and fellow human beings and what goes on with them. And I will I would also like to say that on a personal note, I enjoy snow skiing, playing tennis. I'm an animal lover. I have a rescue dog and cat. I've been very blessed to have loving and supportive family and friends. I owe a debt of gratitude to my parents who made sacrifices for myself and for my sibling. I believe my mother and others are listening now. I'm left-handed and I enjoy eating pizza.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Morales.
Yes, my name is Apolonio Morales. So Apple, O, like your knee, and then O. So Apolonio, if you're wondering how to pronounce my name, Morales. I'm the son of immigrants, undocumented immigrants who came to this country. They were able to adjust their status during the 1986 amnesty. So thankfully, there was legislation at that time. I grew up in El Monte, which is in the San Gabriel Valley. And I went off to go to UC Berkeley, where I graduated with an English degree and an education minor. My focus was modernism, so ask me anything about James Joyce. Would love to talk about that. My experience has been really around organizing, community organizing, faith-based community organizing. As Commissioner Franklin stated, I love working with people and talking with people. So this pandemic has been really difficult for me, not being able to do that and be around a lot of folks right now. Former labor organizer as well with the California Nurses Association and Steelworkers. My forte, my strength is immigration. So I work on immigration issues during my day job, which is Director of External Affairs for the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, or CHIRLA. And so coalition is what I do. I invite many people to many meetings and discuss very important matters. Lastly, I'll say I'm also interested in writing. Is something that I really love to do. And so just recently published in a book called East of East, which is a history of El Monte and Monte, where I grew up, and also part of the steering committee for the Whittier Latino Coalition. So I live in Whittier now, but I very much look forward to serving my community, serving the community at large here in Los Angeles County to really do this right, to make sure that we have representative voices of everybody who resides in Los Angeles County. Thank you.
And thank you. Commissioner Obregon.
Hi, and let's see, I've lived in Los Angeles since 1968. Originally born in New York, but lived in Miami. There was a Cuban thing that we bounced back New York, Miami, and then finally my parents in 68. I remember my 7th birthday here. So I remember that distinctly. I've lived in the Northeast LA area, Highland Park, Eagle Rock. Went to Eagle Rock High School and East LA College, Cal State LA. So I'm definitely a product of the neighborhood. I always saw things with how up here in Eagle Rock, we had Glendale that was a completely different district and the two never met, nor did Pasadena. Always kind of wondered. Then the mayor never really had control of the LAUSD. So I was always kind of scratching my head trying to figure all this out as I was a kid, 13, 14, 15 years old, not understanding how the lines and people creating the lines and all that. I worked for the phone company for the first 18 years of my working career, rising through the phone company. And my final job was as a project manager when we were modularizing the whole world. Everything was changing in the year leading up to 2000. I was laid off from AT&T in the year 2000 and thought, gee, I'll go teach because I always held that out so I enrolled at Cal State LA again and got my teacher credential and worked for Pasadena schools for about 3 years. And then LAUSD, social science, history, government, law. And then I retired a year ago, 59 was when I retired from LAUSD. And I was working as a sub for the charter schools agency kind of thing. But the last day I worked was March 13th, Friday, March 13th. I remember that distinctly because everybody, oh, we'll see you. Because I was finishing a history position that a teacher had abandoned. So I was going to finish the semester. And at March 13th, then we're still waiting for that 2 or 3 weeks, and had a chance to do something that really seemed very interesting. I was at Cal State. I was an urban geography thesis, and geography always was very important in the way the lay of the land and the way a drop of water, how it goes and flows and creates the the watersheds and all the different control of the water. Very familiar with the history of LADWP, Mulholland and Company and Eaton. I was always very nuts and bolts oriented in that sense. I wanted to know why was Crystal Springs in Griffith Park called Crystal Springs? There used to be a springs there. It used to come out of the water, and there was a big old lawsuit over that on who controlled that water. City of San Fernando, why they were able to create their own little city, because their law predated LA City's water rights. And so the city of San Fernando got to stay and pump the water from the wells that they had. And, all those little nuances were very fascinating and steeped in the sense of protocol and legacy. Here I am rambling yes, I'm a product of Northeast LA, and I went to the schools in this area, and I'm proud to be on this commission. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Commissioner Opinela Segura.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Priscilla Pinella Segura. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to serve on this commission. I'm the daughter of Mexican immigrant parents and was raised in Northeast Los Angeles, specifically El Sereno, where I still reside. In my profession, I'm currently an Associate State Director in Communications for AARP, where I have the opportunity to lead communications for the Latino and Hispanic populations. My background is in communications. So prior to AARP, I was the Communication and Public Affairs Manager for the city of Norwalk, where I led a year-long inclusive, innovative census campaign, which is what got me interested in serving on this commission. And prior to Norwalk, I served as a spokeswoman for the city of El Monte and Central Basin Municipal Water District. As an advocate for higher education, I've also served as a part-time educator at Cal State LA, where I also obtained my master's degree. I think as a communications professional with experience in community outreach and public policy, my focus is really to ensure that we as a commission operate with the highest level of transparency and inclusiveness that will then ensure that we have an equitable redistricting throughout LA County. So I really look forward to working with my colleagues on the commission, as well as the county and members of the public.
Thank you. Commissioner Haile Soto.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Haile Soto. I am honored and excited to be part of the Los Angeles County Citizens Redistricting Commission. Here's just a little bit of background about myself. I was born and raised in South Central Los Angeles. I am a son of Mexican immigrants. I've had many nice memories growing up in Los Angeles, but I also experienced firsthand one of the darkest moments in LA history. I lived a few blocks away from where the 1992 Los Angeles riot started by Florence and Normandy. Coincidentally, that tragic event was also on my birthday, so it's very ingrained in my memory. I attended K through 12 LA Unified School District schools. I was the first in my family to go to college. I received my bachelor's degree in urban studies and planning from the University of California, San Diego, and my master's degree in public administration from California State University, Long Beach. I live and work in Southeast Los Angeles County. I live in Downey and I work in Bell Gardens. I actually have a 3-mile commute each way to work, so it's a little bit unheard of to have a short commute in LA, but I consider myself very fortunate for that. I have worked for local government for 15 years, starting in 2005 as an intern in the Community Development Department with the City of Bell Gardens and moving up to be a planner. Currently, I am a senior management analyst. I am responsible for managing the IT and telecommunications infrastructure for the city, as well as social media accounts. I work on special projects and I generate reports and provide technical support for all departments, commissions, and city council. I have processed and recommended the FEMA flood maps. I also served as the 2020 census liaison for the city. I am a member of the newly rechartered Southgate Kiwanis Club, which I was involved back when I was in high school. I am an avid domestic and international traveler. During non-pandemic times, I can honestly say that through my travels have only made me realize how lucky I am to call Los Angeles home. That's it. Thank you.
So thank you. Commissioner Saida Soto.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Saida Soto, and I think my bio is public, so you can check it out, but I'll give just some highlights. I was raised here in East Los Angeles, to reside in East Los Angeles. I was educated in public schools, graduated from Garfield High School, went on to UC San Diego, where I got a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Chemistry, Environmental Systems. I worked sort of as a first job working on studying the impacts of water and air quality, specifically on migrant workers. And I was really set on pursuing a career in science. And I think once I was working with migrant workers and specifically gaining an understanding to the many violations that they experience on a daily basis many years ago and still today, I really shifted towards pursuing work in labor rights. And so for about 7 years, I worked for Organized Labor Service Employees International Union. And then I transitioned over 10 years ago to working for the Children's Defense Fund here in California, where I serve as Deputy Executive Director, and my focus there is on working to ensure that every child here in the state of California has access to a high quality, equitable public education, access to healthcare, that we don't continue on the same trend we have been, which is one of the states with the highest rate of child poverty. And that we also shift away from incarcerating our children and really shifting to having resources in our communities to make sure that our children and youth are supported to become just citizens that can contribute to their communities. And so having been, again, raised in East Los Angeles, I'm very, very aware of what it looks like when you don't have fair representation or equitable representation. So serving as a commissioner is something I will take very seriously. I know it is a very important job. I know that the selection is random. It's a random selection, but nonetheless, there was an application I submitted. And so I thank you for reviewing it and for giving me the opportunity to serve my community in the County of Los Angeles in this capacity. Again, I look forward to serving in this position.
Thank you. Commissioner Sriharan.
That's me. Hi, my name is Priya Sridharan. I'm honored to be among this really extraordinarily impressive group. I've lived in Los Angeles since 1999. I was born in South Carolina, raised in Maryland. I too, like many of you, am a first generation American. I was the first person in my family born in the US, the first person in my family to graduate from college and eventually grad school in the US. You know, my mom, who also, like Commissioner Maeda's family, is an immigrant and is watching, you know, is completely riveted by everything happening in the national political scene. And I think with the zeal of someone who chose to be a citizen after living here for a while. So I've lived in South Pasadena I lived all over Los Angeles County, but in South Pas for 14 years, which in South Pas makes me a newcomer. Most people have lived here a really long time. I'm a single mom of 3 kids. 2 of them are enrolled in South Pas schools. One is actually, many of you mentioned attending Cal State LA. My oldest child goes to high school on the Cal State LA campus. I'm an attorney by training, though for the past 15 plus years, I've actually worked in higher education. So currently I'm an associate dean at Loyola Law School, Los Angeles, downtown, where I oversee sort of the entire student life cycle from admissions to career development and everything in between, and also lead our launch of any new degree programs. So that's a pretty fun gig. I worked in redistricting both for a community organization or for a civil rights nonprofit representing community organizations, as well as for an elected official, but it was 20 years ago. So I feel like I have a pretty good sense of how redistricting can work, but I'm also a newbie. So I'm really just come to this with an open mind, really eager to learn from all of you, from the data, and from most of all the people of the county, like Commissioner Soto, with a real interest to developing districts that create equitable and meaningful representation. Thank you.
So Commissioner Stetcher, and thank you.
Hello, I'm Brian Stetcher. My video has been freezing, so if there's a problem, I will turn it off and turn it back on. I retired recently from the Rand Corporation, where I finished a long career, which the theme of which I think has always been education. So I would label myself an educator. I got a bachelor's and master's degree in mathematics and discovered that I didn't want to be a research mathematician. So I took time off and I taught in Compton and Willowbrook and Enterprise. I taught advanced mathematics to elementary school students. And then I went back and got a PhD at UCLA in educational research and worked for a number of years at Educational Testing Service and then at RAND, where I did public policy research on education, the goal of which was almost always to try to bring more fair and equitable learning opportunities to students throughout the nation, the state, or the local area through the power of various government policy and through the distribution of resources. So I think my interest in this comes in part from my own experience with elections. When I was in junior high school, I was the first person ever to lose a student body president election to a girl. And when I was in high school, I was the first person to ever lose the student body president election to an underclassman, to a junior. So I feel like I've firsthand given opportunities to a lot of underrepresented groups to be in leadership roles. And I hope that I've learned from that the value of making the electoral process fair and unbiased. And that's my goal as part of service on this commission. I'm a third generation Angelino. So I was born and raised and grew up here, a product of LA Unified School District. And my mother was born and raised here. And my grandmother came here in about 1910. So I know the county well just from having lived all around in various parts. And I'm looking forward to serving with all of you who bring such interesting backgrounds and skills to this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Vento.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Vento, and I have been a political science professor at Antelope Valley College for almost about 16 years. I've been teaching for about 20. And I always have this famous saying when I teach my students about redistricting and gerrymandering. There's an old saying that goes, the map maker is more powerful than the voter. And I've been doing this for probably 20 years, trying to teach students about gerrymandering and stuff like this. And I'd always get these comments about why students always felt like their votes didn't count. And so I was really, really pleased when California passed Prop 14 to empower the citizens to actually draw the district. And this was something I just decided that I had students that said, why don't you ever do that? Why don't you ever do that? So I have applied several times to the commission, and I'm fortunate that this opportunity arose and I got selected. I am a second generation Angelino. I've lived in La Cañada, Santa Monica, Westwood, Long Beach, and Palmdale. I graduated from UCLA and Cal State Fullerton, and I teach courses on American politics, international relations, and comparative governmental systems like ranked choice systems, as Commissioner Holton mentioned. And I've been married for almost 20 years, and I have 3 children. My wife is a teacher as well. And I have coached everything from soccer to baseball to track to you name it. I'm actively involved in my kids' life, and I drive a minivan and a truck, and I sell Girl Scout cookies. So that's where I am with my life right now. So I just wanted to welcome you and let you know I'm looking really forward to working with everybody on here. And I'm the type of person that gives hugs. Just that's who I am. So if I could, I wish I could see you guys all and give you guys a big hug, just because it's just fun to be a part of this commission. And I look forward to serving and working with all of you. So thank you.
And thank you. Commissioner Williams.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Williams. I'm in the 2nd Supervisory District. I live in Hawthorne. I'm originally from Louisiana. I've spent almost all of my adult life in Los Angeles. Moved here in 1976. Currently, I'm a life coach, executive coach. I work with nonprofit leaders and others. I'm also a volunteer mediator for Centennial Youth Services, working with kids who happen to get into trouble, work with them and their families and other impacted people. Before I started to do that, I spent more than 30 years with Southern California Gas Company and the Semper Energy companies. I started in training and development, moved around, and spent most of my career in community relations. Something that I really enjoyed, got to work with the nonprofits in the 12 counties that Southern California Gas Company served, as well as in San Diego. I've done a number of lots of things in the community. One of the things that stands out for me is a project that we call Tomorrow's Leaders, where we worked with 26 community agencies serving in the poorest communities of Los Angeles County. We worked with over 100,000 students, and the intent was to help them develop leadership skills, closing the digital divide, and other things. And we were able to track the students' progress, and we did that in partnership with United Way of Greater LA. I've done other work in the community. My background, initially my undergraduate degree from Louisiana Tech is in psychology. From there, I went to Cal State LA, some graduate work in psychology, got a master's in public administration at USC. And I also did my PhD studies at USC, did not finish my dissertation. And I've done a lot of work. I love education, so I've done some graduate work at other schools as well. I currently serve on a number of boards. I was a founding board member at USC Price School for the Alumni Association. I currently serve on the Diamond Institute at Cal State Dominguez Hills. I'm involved with the Center for Nonprofit Management. I'm a board member. I'm on the board for Linwood Educational Partners Foundation and a number of others. So I'm still involved in the community. I love that work. We'll probably, as long as I can, we'll find a way to stay involved doing that. I'm pleased to be a member of the commission, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wong. You'll need to unmute.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yes, well, thank you. I guess one of the advantages of having, being last is I get to hear all about all of, the other amazing commissioners. So that has been really kind of exciting. I feel quite honored to have been selected to be, part of this commission. So thank you. Like many of you, my parents and grandparents were immigrants. And so I'm very familiar with the struggles of immigrant families and have been working in my work life with immigrant populations for many years. I'm originally from San Francisco, the Bay Area, and I hate to admit it, but I used to be a Northern California chauvinist, but having lived in LA for over 25 years, now I have thoroughly become an Angelino and proud of that, which I, proudly say to my old friends up in Northern California. But currently, I'm the policy director at Asian Resources, Inc. I'm in its Los Angeles office. It's a nonprofit community-based organization that was created in 1980. It's based in Sacramento and dedicated to providing multiple social services to the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities. And my focus is on advocacy to increase access to healthcare and to transform the current healthcare system we have to be more equitable and responsive to the communities we serve. And I oversee several state and local health collaboratives. And I have over 30 years of experience as a civil rights attorney and more of a social justice advocate. And I've been working in the areas of healthcare, language access, and voting rights, and work for a range of public interest organizations like Asian Americans Advancing Justice in LA, National Health Law Program. And when I was at the Asian Law Caucus in Northern California is where I worked on voting rights and some redistricting back many years ago, over 25 years ago. Lots of things have changed. I've seen a lot of progress. I've also worked at other civil rights organizations like the ACLU and the National Women's Law Center. But I'm particularly, I guess, proud of more my extracurricular community work where I've been working to help organize different Asian American LGBTQ groups for the last 40 years nationally and local and in different states and places where I lived throughout the country. I received my law degree from NYU back in 1987 as a second career, after having worked as a healthcare professional for 9 years. So I never saw myself as an attorney, and I just realized that I wanted to become a more effective advocate for my communities, which is why I then went to law school. So I'm happy, to be part of the commission, and I'm really looking forward to working with all of you and to create, fair and equitable maps for LA County. So thank you.
So again, it's an expansion of the oaths, but welcome. And to me, it was very important that you have this time to not only do your introductions to the public, but we are now forming the Commission of 14. So it's very important that you all get to know each other, and this is just a first step. And we have Lorraine Liggett on, and I'd like to introduce you to her. She is the county program manager for this whole project.
Gayla?
Yes.
Can I just interrupt? I'm sorry, I didn't take very long. I just wanted to add a little bit to what I said. I forgot to mention something important. I'm sorry. I served for a term on the hearing board at the South Coast Air Quality Management District. That's important for two reasons here. One is because the engineer who was chair of that board when I was on it told me he'll be tuning in tonight. And he also is someone who wrote me a very kind recommendation when I applied to be on the state redistricting commission. The other thing is that the South Coast District is broken up into various areas, air pollution impact areas, or whatever you want to call them, source receptor areas, where people are exposed to similar levels of air pollution. And even at the micro level, close to industrial facilities, people who are exposed to similar levels of air pollution might end up being communities of interest that we consider in our future deliberations. So there's that. And now learning from Commissioner Williams that you worked for SoCal Gas, I can tell you I'm very familiar with one public relations issue you might have had a while back, that Aliso Canyon leak. My hearing board heard a case about that. And also with regard to Commissioner Sridharan, it's nice to know that you're from Loyola, because I know Justin Levitt, who's an expert on redistricting and such, also is at Loyola Law School. It's great to see the new commissioners. Thank you all for introducing yourselves.
Okay, so I'd like to introduce Lorraine Liggett. She's on. Why don't you start with an introduction of the role that you all have with the executive office and this project?
Very good. Thank you all so much. I just want to say welcome. Thank you to those commissioners who started your work back in December, and welcome to all of you this is your first meeting tonight. So I appreciate the opportunity to just introduce myself as well. I am Lorraine Liggett, Assistant Executive Officer over Commission Services with the Executive Office of the Board of Supervisors. And as you know, the board is obligated to provide reasonable funding and staffing for your commission. So our commission services, you met Twyla earlier as well. She had the opportunity to administer oath of office, but we're here to ensure that you have the staff support and resources that you need to carry out the responsibilities and objective of the commission. As such, we have engaged KH Consulting Group to independently provide those services, and Holly Watley to provide the legal counsel, and I'll be the county's program manager for these contracts. I believe you've all, or most of you have had the opportunity to meet Gayla. Her organization has a master agreement with us to provide consulting services, and as they demonstrated the ability to facilitate the scale of meetings and public hearings that your commission will need to hold as you move forward, as well as the capacity and network ability with the community and organizations to obtain expertise as your commission identifies the needs. She'll be able to work with you to do that in areas such as mapping, demographers, population analysis, anything that special needs that you feel like that you will need to complete your work. In addition to those experts, KH Consulting is also authorized to obtain other services to conduct your meetings, such as translation services when they're needed, as well as to work with you, the commission, and community organizations to engage and encourage public participation in this process. So we're also working with a consultant, as Gayla mentioned earlier, to provide you with your own website where you'll be able to post information and update the community on your activities. And once you've selected your chairperson, we'll also work with them and the executive director in the provision of services identified as needed. And as your work continues to get underway. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you all for your commitment to serve on the commission, and I really wish you the best as you begin to undertake this role.
Thank you, Lorena. I might add also the mapping software.
That's
is
correct.
Another huge component that their office is working on, with the contract and coordination with Internal Services Department. Twyla, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Twyla Curran. I'm the Chief of Commission Services, and we provide administrative support to over 23 commissions. And we also maintain the committee book, which holds over 209 commission appointments and reappointments. And we also conduct sunset reviews for the Citizens Advisory Commissions. And welcome, congratulations to all of you. I know you will do great work, great work.
And I'll just formally introduce myself very briefly. I have a very long name and I've sort of turned into it's Gayla Craich Hartso. You can just call me Gayla. I am president of KH Consulting Group, which Lorraine already mentioned. Our firm has served over 200 clients. We've worked in 24 states, 9 foreign countries, but most of our work is here in Los Angeles. We specialize in public sector, local government, and in higher education. A lot of our work is around strategic planning, change management, community engagement, and I'm on the faculty at USC as an associate adjunct faculty member and teach public policy. And with that, I want to introduce Ty, our GIS person, and I'm going to turn it over to our lawyer. So Ty, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ty, and I'm with KH Consulting. I am the GIS specialist for this. With KH Consulting, so I will help with the mapping as well as with the logistics. I'm also a PhD candidate at USC Price School, so it's great to hear Commissioner Williams have a connection with.
And you're also a Bruin.
And yes, and I did my undergraduate degree at UCLA, so I am a Bruin and a Trojan, so a Brojan.
And I will just mention, one of the things, Lorraine mentioned about the budget, in addition to translation services, we will be bringing in subject matter experts. So once we get a lot of the mechanics down, the bylaws, your emails, the website up and all of that, we then need to start working with you in all earnestness in terms of bringing in your demographers, going through the public access plan, getting prepared for the public hearings you'll be conducting come spring, preparation for you in terms of the software come this summer with the census data for that, and then the rollout in the fall of the plan options. So next week I'll go into more of the details of the calendar. But with that, I'm turning it over to Holly so she can introduce herself. And I think, Holly, you should then just go ahead and segue into agenda item 7C, unless you feel we should receive. I don't think we have any public comment on agenda item 7.1. No. So let's move on to Holly's introduction.
Hi, I'm Holly Watley. I'm a partner with Colantuno, Highsmith, and Watley. We are a law firm that specializes in providing legal services to local agencies all up and down throughout the state of California, from cities, special districts, some counties, special districts of all kinds, water districts in particular. And basically, I was born and raised in Texas. I went to undergrad and law school at the University of Texas. And I recall with glee the national championship where UT did beat USC. But this will be the only time I mention it. And I have always enjoyed working with government. I have felt and still feel that our government agencies deserve the highest level of legal services that the Wall Street firms get, because good work is done locally, it impacts people's lives, and I'm just real thrilled here to be a part of this and to help you all do the job you want to do. And with that, I'm going to segue into item 7C on the agenda, which is the consent, consideration of the consent under California Professional Rule of Responsibility number 1.8.6. I did, you should have had in your packet the staff report associated with this. Really what triggers this is what Lorraine indicated, is the county has retained my offices to provide legal services to the commission. Although the county is paying the bills, my client is the commission. And because of that difference between who pays the bills and who the client is, my obligations as a member of the bar under the rules of responsibility were triggered that I need to get consent from both the person paying the bills, so they understand, although they're paying the bills, they are not the client, and also from the client to that representation. So whoever would be sitting in this chair would be coming to you seeking that consent. Gala provided an interim consent early on as was necessary. The rules do allow that to happen as long as they then bring to you and get the written informed consent as soon as practical. So this is your first meeting. This is the soonest time we could get it. And it's essentially just a recommendation that you ratify that prior consent. And with that, I can answer any questions before we see if there's any public comment on the item. I don't see any hands up. Okay, Commissioner Holtzman.
How have you been doing great work for us so far? Thank you. I do see in the letter that you wrote on behalf of your firm to us, you're talking about representation of the commission. And I've seen your role so far as being advising the commission. And then I saw your fee schedule talks about two different things, advisory work and litigation work. I don't know, is there any way we can at this point limit the scope of your contract with us to advice? And if we actually face litigation, revisit it then? Or look for our own litigation counsel? Because I know the state commission has recently issued requests for information from possible alternate counsel later. Like I say, I think you've done great work for us now, but I think it might be premature for us to settle on a litigation counsel. So just have this question for you. Yeah, a question.
I think that would be something that, since my contract is with the county, that you could, if the time came, you could, ask Lorraine about that. If they, because whoever represents the commission would need to contract and go through the contracting procurement process with the county, because the county is the one that is paying it and provides the staff. So I think that would be something that at that time you could bring up.
Thank you. And I'll just say, well, we'll wait for public comment, then we'll discuss the item. Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Stetcher's got it up.
You're muted again, Brian.
Well, it's because I have two screens open. And you have to first click on the other screen before you click to unmute. No, and what I wanted was a reference to where in our documentation, where in that long meeting document was in fact the pieces you were just referring to. And I believe they start, now I'll probably mute myself by clicking on the other document. I think they start on page 67. So if anybody wanted to look at where the relevant document was.
Yes, my staff report begins on page 66 of that lengthy PDF that was provided. And it's then followed by a copy of the professional rules of responsibility, and then a copy of the agreement, which includes the consent language. Which has both the signature from the county folks acknowledging that as well as Gala. And I think I would check with Ty just to see if we have any public comment on this item.
We currently have no participant wanting to comment on this.
Okay, I think at this point it would be up to the commission for discussion and a potential motion and vote.
Okay. Hi. I really don't feel comfortable with Commissioner Holtzman's suggestion on limiting. I really appreciate, and I did read over the document, and so I didn't find any issues with that at all. I really don't, I'm not an attorney, but that I did see and read, I didn't find any problem with it. And I appreciate the fact that we do have counsel. And if and when, and we're not looking to have any litigation, so, but I do feel comfortable making sure that what's in the contract or what's in the document is adhered to. So I really do not agree with limiting what's in the contract.
Commissioner Maeda, followed by Commissioner Morales, then Stetcher.
So on that issue, it does seem to me that who knows what the future brings in terms of potential litigation. But isn't it possible that if litigation is brought, that the litigation defense lawyer would want to rely upon the fact that there was independent legal advice given to the commission to justify its actions? In other words, wouldn't we actually want to have a separation of the litigation defense counsel from an independent counsel who's advising the commission as it's making its decisions?
If you're asking me that, I think it actually would depend on the litigation. And it's hard to know now what that would look like until you know what it is, what the litigation is. Whether it's something that happens between now and when the maps are drawn, or it's a post-map drawing. So like as I mentioned before, I think it's something that you could raise with the county at the time that the concern came up, since they are in charge of the contracting on it.
Commissioner Morales?
I was just going to say, just in terms of continuity, right? So somebody has been walking with us the whole way, has a deeper understanding, should we be put in that situation of getting sued. And so, yeah, I don't see such a big issue maybe as others on the commission, but that's just my perspective here.
Commissioner Stetcher, followed by Commissioner Orpanela-Segura.
I was just going to say that it seems that either way, we still have to consider this again at the point where there is litigation. And so I don't see anything to be gained by severing that responsibility now. If there is litigation, we would consider at that time the qualifications of our counsel and make an appropriate change. And I hope this has come through, because I can see my video froze again.
It came through, Commissioner Stetcher. Commissioner Orpanela-Segura, followed by Commissioner Williams.
I think including litigation would serve as a safeguard. That's my comment. And I have a question that I think was posed by Commissioner Stetcher. If we were to enter into litigation and we left the litigation services with our counsel, would there be a possibility to still, if needed, seek additional counsel services? Just a question.
And that is something I think that absolutely the chair could take up with Lorraine, since she's the contact on that. Lorraine, do you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, I just, as they indicated, I believe that that would be the appropriate way to do so. If and when the time comes that you need to assess those services, then we can work with you and determine how best to do that.
I will say that just to kind of focus the issue here before you is the consent for me to continue to represent you while the county is paying the bills. So that consent given now it doesn't preclude you from approaching Lorraine if and when the time comes. And I am now seeing Commissioner Wong has her hand up, or her virtual hand up.
Can I, oh, am I next?
You're on mute, Gayla.
Okay,
I think I was next.
Commissioner Williams is next, and I see Wong's hand.
Okay, I was just wondering, was this the standard way that the county handles these kinds of contracts? But I also agree with Commissioner Stecker that if we need to go into litigation, and we have some of those issues that come up, would that be an appropriate time for us to consider if this is the appropriate way to do it, or would we be able to look at other opportunities for us to address that? So I'm thinking if we go ahead and to approve it as is, we will have, if we have the option to address it when it comes up, let's go ahead and move on.
Commissioner Wong, did you have your hand up, I believe?
Yes, I guess I guess others have said what I was going to say in terms of it probably, when the time comes, we probably would have that option. I'm assuming that the county would pay for whoever we decided we would want to represent us in any litigation. So if we could confirm that, that would be helpful. And also, I just want to confirm that the commissioners ourselves are not held liable in case there's any kind of litigation as well, correct?
If you all were individually sued or individually named in a lawsuit connected with your work on the commission, you wouldn't be liable, with one caveat. If in connection with your work on the commission, you violated the Brown Act and there were any prosecutions or anything along those lines where you have some individual responsibility, I can't speak to that. But if somebody sued over the map you drew and argued it violated the Voting Rights Act, the county would be, picking up the defense costs on that, and you shouldn't be personally liable.
I believe it's a two-part question. I believe, Lorraine, you were going to respond to the first part of the question, possibly.
So again, to that question, the county is obligated to provide reasonable funding and staffing. So again, if and when that issue comes up, we would take that into consideration for what's needed for the commission.
So before we start a second round of comments from commissioners, are there any other commissioners who have not spoken who would like to comment on this? Okay, I believe Commissioner Holtzman, your hand was up.
Yeah, thank you. First, thank you, Ms. Watley, for the description of the limits of our liability. It sounds a lot like the qualified immunity doctrine that police officers get to use if they're sued over what they do during the course of their work. And of course, that's a big deal these days. With regards to what Commissioner Franklin said, I absolutely do not want to preclude the possibility that Holly Watley will represent us in litigation. I was very satisfied by her answer to my question that it will be possible to visit the question of who should represent us when the time comes. And I think I've heard that from Lorraine Lingat. And with regard to consent to this form of representation, it's a little bit like when an insurance company pays your lawyer and you're the defendant or something like that. I'm totally fine with that. In fact, if you'd like, I'll even make the motion to approve that, to ratify that, or whatever it is. But I also wanted to point out to everybody that the ultimate payer for a lot of our costs may not actually be the county, because of the last section of the bill that created our commission. The state law says that if the state law has imposed unfunded mandates, they're called, on the county can apply to a commission on state mandates for reimbursement. And I imagine they're going to do that. And in a list of issues for future discussion, I've submitted for consideration at the end of this meeting. I want to see if maybe we'll talk about how that works. So just thought that would be an interesting thing for people to realize, that may not be the county that's eventually paying a lot of our bills, but it could be.
Are there any further comments, discussion? Holly, do you want to sort of check on this and then maybe see if anybody wants to make a motion?
I think seeing no other comments, we would entertain a motion. Commissioner Holtzman.
All right, I move that this commission ratify the prior written consent discussed in this agenda item as of today.
Okay. Commissioner Williams has given a second, and we'll now ask Ty to call the roll.
Thank you. So I will now take roll call. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman.
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel Maeda.
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Aye.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Yes.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpinella Segura.
Yes.
Commissioner Hyla Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Saida Soto.
Yes.
Commissioner Priya Sridharan.
Yes.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Yes.
Commissioner John Bento.
Yes.
Commissioner Carolyn Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I think I'm also handling the next agenda item, 7D, an overview of the Brown Act, Conflict of Interest, and the Public Records Act. And with your indulgence, my suggestion here would be that I go through my slides on the Brown Act and the Conflict of Interest, but that I defer going into the Public Records Act until that we keep in mind where we are time-wise when I get through those two, which I believe are really the most critical to get you as part of your onboarding process here early. And I know we have folks waiting to make public comments on the bylaws. So I think we'll try that approach. When I get to the end and we get to the Public Records Act, we can just kind of take a look, and if folks are in agreement, we can table that piece of it and bring it back to you at a future meeting so we can timely get to some of the other issues. With that, I am going to share my screen if it all goes as planned. All right, can everybody see the slides? I have asked Gayla and Ty to, because I'm sharing the screen, I can only see a few of you at a time. So if somebody raises their hand or wants to unmute and interrupt and ask a question, please do. The best time to ask a question is when I'm on the topic. So this really is part of the onboarding going to talk about the Brown Act generally, conflict of interest generally, and as I said, probably in a future meeting, I will touch on Public Records Act issues, which is important, but it's not as voluminous and not as time sensitive as I think getting you up to speed on the Brown Act and conflict of interest and some of your disclosure obligations. First, I want to call out that this overview I'm giving here, I deliberately called it an overview. It is not a substitute for what is commonly called AB 1234 training. And that is a state law that mandates ethics training for local officials. And so tonight's overview is not a substitute for that, because that course takes 2 hours. It has a very prescribed content. We know your time is valuable. So you are able to take those, take that online, on demand, at no cost through the Fair Political Practices Commission website. And here's the link. And I will follow this up with an email to you all. You will see, if you had looked at the bylaws, that for AB 1234 training, the standard law is that you complete the 2-hour training within 1 year of assuming your duties. Because this commission's work will only take a year, I'm suggesting, and this is part of the bylaws, that you just voluntarily adopt a bylaw that says the commissioners will complete it within 60 days, because I hate for you to, complete it at the end when it's good for you to know some stuff earlier on. So with that in mind, let me just dive right in. A little bit of history on the Brown Act. That gentleman on the left wrote a 10-part expose, some call it an expose, in the San Francisco Chronicle entitled "Your Secret Government." It was a problem that the state faced, that many local agencies had very different rules. It was hard for anybody to know which rules to follow. The League of California Cities lobbied Ralph Brown, there pictured on the right, to adopt one set of reforms to apply to all local agencies. And that's where we got the Brown Act. Now, the heart of the Brown Act is right here, is that all meetings of legislative bodies of local agencies shall be open and public, and all persons shall be permitted to attend the meeting, and except as otherwise provided. And of course, there are exceptions, which we'll touch on. So one of the biggest things is, what is a legislative body? Some of those are quite easy. Everybody knows a city council, a board of supervisors. This commission is such a legislative body. It's a local agency created by state statute. Also, a legislative body is a standing subcommittee, board, or commission created by a local agency. Now, what is a standing committee? A standing committee is one that is created with and intended to last indefinitely. One of the common examples I use of a standing subcommittee here in Los Angeles is the city of LA has a standing subcommittee for budget and finance. So even though that subcommittee is less than a quorum of the city council, because it is standing, it is covered by the Brown Act. It's considered a legislative body. By that same token, then, an ad hoc committee of a commission is not covered by the Brown Act, generally speaking. If that ad hoc committee is advisory to the legislative body, it's temporary for a limited purpose and is composed of less than a quorum of the legislative body's members. So that ad hoc committee cannot have a member that is somebody other than the legislative body on it. If it does, then it kicks over and is covered by the Brown Act. There's another exception for special advisory groups that staff may create to help them, or a single member of a legislative body may create on their own. Those are not covered. Those are not considered legislative bodies, and public employees on their own are not either. So the next thing that is important to know is, what is a meeting? And that is defined here, as I've laid out, or as the statute lays out. That's a congregation of a majority of the members of a legislative body. to hear, discuss, or deliberate on any matter within their subject matter jurisdiction of the agency. So this obviously that we're in is the classic example, except that it's virtual, of a meeting of a legislative body. But over the years, they've fine-tuned this to make clear what else can be considered a meeting, and that is the use of a series of communications through directly or through any intermediaries to discuss, deliberate, or take action on an item of business within the subject matter of the commission or the body. So that includes serial meetings. So here's the classic type of serial meetings are either a hub and spoke setup or a daisy chain setup. A hub and spoke type of meeting is considered a meeting even though no quorum is present in the same place. But instead, rather, the communication takes place through a single individual going out to one-on-one all or the majority of the legislative members and polling them, taking straw polls about what would they think if this issue came forward, trying to develop a consensus outside of a public meeting is barred under the Brown Act. We classically see this with either an individual who is close to a member goes and who also knows the others will go and sort of act as an intermediary. The classic folks that sometimes the legislators turn to try to get this done is staff. They will ask a city manager or an executive director, or certainly the attorney is sometimes prevailed upon to try to do this, and professional staff won't engage in it, but that doesn't mean people may not try. I'm not suggesting anyone here would, but that is something to be aware of, that you still can run afoul of the Brown Act, even if it's just one person speaking one-on-one, if the goal is they're trying to develop a consensus. Same thing with the daisy chain example I give here. This is where all of the meetings at issue are still one-on-one, individual, no quorum is ever together. And it's something where, you know, Commissioner 1 says, I've got an idea, shares it with Commissioner 2, Commissioner 2 likes it and says, don't worry, I'll go talk to Commissioner 3. And goes to Commissioner 3 and says, hey, Commissioners 1 and me think this is a good idea. And then it kind of goes all the way around and you accomplish your goal of kind of deliberating or trying to come to a consensus, but you're doing it outside of the public meeting. And so that is also not allowed. Really the only time generally that this type of hub and spoke or a daisy chain meeting is allowed is if you're allowed to have communications about whether to have or call a special meeting. And the discussions that take place are solely as to whether to call a special meeting. They can't be substantive discussions about the agenda item that will be on that meeting, but you are allowed to have preliminary discussions of when to have a special meeting. You are also allowed to have a hub and spoke type reaching out from staff to determine folks' availability for scheduling such a meeting. So one of the things that I would, where you will also see this, and it is completely inadvertent, is where once your emails are set up, you may begin to receive material from the public that is addressed to all commissioners. They address it to all commissioners and they make a public comment or attach a document and urge a specific action. The one thing, if you take nothing else away from this meeting or this presentation, please take away that you must fight the urge to hit reply all, because this is where well-meaning folks will absolutely, through no intent and inadvertently, communicate support or a critique or something to some material that's been sent to everyone. They just inadvertently hit reply all, and it's so try to, whenever you do hit a reply to incoming information, to just make sure you're replying only to the sender and not to the larger group, and that will go a long way to avoiding what 99% of the time is an inadvertent Brown Act issue. So just keep that in mind. So let me give you other examples of serial meetings. One of them is the serial briefing. Now, one-way flow of information from staff to commissioners doesn't cause any problems with the Brown Act. And in fact, a single commissioner having discussions with staff also does not cause a problem with the Brown Act about stuff on the agenda. It's when, if there's any effort to try to have staff turn into a lobbyist for others, that we run into issues. So, for example, if a commissioner has a concern about something, the commissioner can call up the executive director to talk about that concern. That doesn't create a Brown Act problem. Then in that scenario, the executive director could reach out to Ty or could reach out to me and say, here's a concern that the commissioner has. That's not going to cause a Brown Act problem. This commission is large, and the law specifically says a quorum is 9. So really, the executive director could speak about the concern to quite a number of commissioners before it crossed over into the threshold of crossing over into quorum. I don't suggest that Gayla would ever find herself doing that, but I'm just saying that as you kind of progress, what you're looking for is when do you cross over, and the tipping point is a little bit vague here for this commission. The law says a majority of the commission, which in this case would be 8. That's the Brown Act. The elections code here, though, says 9. It takes 9 of your commission to be a quorum, and 9, affirmative vote of 9 to take any official act. So, someone could argue that, well, 8 people can talk. It's only the 9th where you get into trouble. I would urge you to err on the side of caution and think about a majority when you think about that. And one of the things they will talk to you in AB 1234 training is that these ethics presentations and these concepts, they are a floor. They are never intended to be a ceiling. You can always apply a higher standard of ethics to your engagement, and you're encouraged to do so. So that's kind of how a serial briefing can work. Now let me give you an example of an email. Let's say that I email the entire group, and I say attached is a staff report for the upcoming meeting. And you've got a commissioner that replies all and says, hey, what about those Dodgers? They're looking great here in spring training. That is communication to the commissioners, and that's my dream because I am a Dodgers fan. A communication to commissioners that's really not within their jurisdiction, about something they have jurisdiction over. And maybe you're trying to build a consensus for Dodgers fans out there. But that's an email situation where it's not going to run afoul of Brown Act. Let's say now someone does a reply all back and says, well, forget the Dodgers. I'm interested in scheduling a special meeting to address this issue that's hanging out there. That probably doesn't not violate the Brown Act because all you're doing is talking about scheduling, whether to call a special meeting and potentially whether to schedule it. Now, if somebody hits reply all to that and says, oh yeah, I think we should schedule the special meeting. And by the way, I fully support the item under consideration and I'm going to be lobbying everybody. Now we've crossed over and essentially had a meeting where nobody was in the same room. And they weren't even talking to each other face to face. Now I'm going to touch on something that, I wouldn't have thought 20 years ago I'd be talking about, how virtual meetings via social media. So here's an example, right? Somebody is on Facebook, and maybe that's showing an age that people are on Facebook. But they post, let's say one commissioner posts happy birthday on another commissioner's Facebook page. And then another commissioner hits like, thumbs up, uses an emoji that expresses an emotion that conveys approval or disapproval. Okay, well, we're just talking about birthdays and it's thumbs up. So that's probably an easy one, right? Doesn't run afoul of the Brown Act. Let's say then somebody comes in and they tag all the commissioners on that post. And then somebody, responds and says, I've clicked here the latest news report on the Voting Rights Act and a decision that's come down. And now you're starting to get kind of close. And other people, all they do is do thumbs up? You're starting to get really close to the line. I think probably potentially crossing over the line. So I'm just saying this, to be careful. The meetings and building consensus can include emojis and emoticons. So you didn't think you'd hear me saying that, but there you are. There are certain exceptions. Now that I went over all those things and included what is a meeting, individual contacts. If it weren't COVID, and you went to a conference, that's not going to be a Brown Act violation, provided that when you're at the conference, you didn't have any discussions about subject matter and build a consensus about what you're going to do when you get back after the conference. Community meetings, if you went to a meeting of another legislative body, and some social or ceremonial occasions, again, with the caveat that as long as at none of those meetings were you conferring and trying to build consensus. One thing I would call out, and normally remote meetings are not allowed. Some people, there were some very specific provisions that allowed one or two people to be able to call in, teleconferencing remotely. COVID has changed that. We have the emergency order from the governor that allows these meetings. Remote meetings require that all votes be by roll call, even during COVID-19. So, and even on consent items and on small items. So we'll always have to build in a roll call because you just can't, you can't capture, you don't know who is saying aye or nay in the same way at a virtual meeting. Here's just a chart that kind of talks about generally the timelines for publishing the agenda. I note that for the commission, for public hearings, the elections code requires a minimum 1 week's notice for public hearings. So there are some special rules that apply to the commission, but these are the general rules for regular non-public hearing meetings and special meetings. Content of the agenda, I won't linger on this because our agenda today basically talks about it, but these are the general requirements or expectations for what's on the agenda. I will add that the item where we allow public comment for items not on the agenda, but within the subject matter of the commission, is required by the Brown Act for regular meetings. It's not required when there's a special meeting, but for the regular meetings, you will see this agenda item on there. It's required by the Brown Act. For public comment, the two types: for items on the agenda and for items not on the agenda. And generally, the rule of thumb for you is, with very limited exceptions, when there is public comment on items not on the agenda, you really just should not discuss those because they weren't on the agenda. With very limited exceptions that really don't apply here. If you're interested in those, email me and I'll let you know what they are. So the main thing here is remember to stay on topic we've got here. There really are essentially four appropriate responses, pardon me, to public comment regarding items not on the agenda. You can ask a clarifying question of the member of the public. You can very briefly respond to it. You can refer the matter to staff, or you can ask to agendize it for a later discussion. The public has a right to comment. They're entitled to speak for the time set by the body. Pardon me. Usually the chair, the body may have sort of a default rule on the timing for public comment, but the chair always has discretion to change that depending on the number of commenters, to run an efficient meeting and to make sure that there's a reason the meeting can end at a reasonable time. Public commenters should not be interrupted unless they cross over into threats of violence, incitement of violence, or extreme obscenity. It is a classic freedom of speech for public commenters to come and criticize the government and also to support the government. And so either viewpoint is allowed, and we don't cut them off. There are public rights to come and photograph and record meetings. Of course, this one is we're recording on our own. If we were meeting in the county facilities, people could come in. They do not have to be credentialed press. They can record the meetings. We are allowed to ask them to place reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on them so the meeting's not disrupted, but they are allowed to record it. For closed sessions, that is when we are allowed to go and have a discussion out of earshot of the public. There are specific requirements that we must meet to do so. It's limited situations. And also, you are not allowed to disclose the content of what happens in a closed session lest you be subject to some penalties, including some criminal penalties, were that to happen. Unless, it's hard to know now whether we would have a need for any closed session. If litigation came, most certainly we probably would. So that was kind of hitting the highlights of the Brown Act issues. Again, when you take the AB 1234 training, they'll go into much more detail. What I wanted to do here is just give you enough information to know when to ask a question. I just wanted to kind of hit some issues and kind of nail down that email issue. And please, if you have any questions about any Brown Act stuff, email me or call me. I'll get you my contact information. I'm here to help you with that. You shouldn't wonder about it. And that's something I can help you do. I'm just checking on the timing. I do want to go through the conflict of interest because we have a time-sensitive, commissioners have a time-sensitive reporting requirement that I want to touch on. Here is actually a notorious conflict of interest character. If folks don't know, this was Robert Rizzo, former city administrator from Bell. And years ago, he and 7 other city officials got caught up in a terrible scandal for that community where they were lining their own pockets. And I think in the end, he was collecting about $800,000 in salary for a city with a population of 34,000. So conflict of interest is serious, and the public interest in ensuring good government is quite strong. Let's see here. All right, let me back up. The 3 topics I'm going to cover fairly quickly, mindful of the time, is Government Code Section 1090, the Political Reform Act, and Form 700, or a Statement of Economic Interest. Government Code Section 1090 essentially stands for the idea that public officials should not be financially interested in decisions made by them in their official capacity. The classic 1090 example is if someone on a legislative body votes to grant a contract to a person who they, or an entity that they have a financial interest in. So if anybody here, if anybody on the commission had a consulting business, a demographer consulting business, and the demographer came, that you would have, you could not use your position to contract, even if the contract was fair, even if it was the lowest price, and even if you abstain from the vote. That's the basic rule. 1090 finds such self-dealing to be so offensive, it just doesn't even matter if it's a good deal. It's not allowed. The consequences for violating 1090 are significant. The contract is void and unenforceable. The agency gets to keep the benefits and doesn't have to pay anything. The official has to disgorge any money, and violation can be a fine or imprisonment and a lifetime ban from public office. So that's examples. I don't think we're going to see too much opportunity for that here with this commission that you might see with the city council, whose jurisdiction is much broader. The Political Reform Act is something that came out in response to Watergate, where Californians adopted Proposition 9, and it was championed by Secretary of State Jerry Brown and Common Cause, among others. So again, in your AB 1234 training, they're going to go into this in much more detail. But there's essentially three components to it. The first is when you're analyzing, does the Political Reform Act apply? The first is, does the decision involve a public official? And is it a governmental decision? And does that official have a financial interest? Who is a public official? A public official are ones that are designated by statute or designated as public servants or consultants that serve in a capacity by contract. For this commission, you all, under the Elections Code, have been designated as public officials. So each commission member shall be a designated employee for purposes of the Conflict of Interest Code adopted by the County of LA. In your packet, I included the Conflict of Interest Code that the county had adopted. They adopted it, that's applicable to the commission, on January 5th, 2021. So that material that I gave you, it says proposed conflicts code on it. That was the one that was actually adopted. They just have not yet issued the signed, the official one with the letter that says the effective date of it. That was the most current version we had from city staff. So you need to take a look at that code because it designates all the types of disclosures that the commissioners need to make. And it also includes disclosures that the executive director and your outside counsel will need to make on a Form 700, which is a statement of economic interest. So the deadline here for you as a designated employee to file a Form 700 is within 30 days of the adoption of the conflict code by the county. So that's going to be here no later than February 5th, 2021. You should submit your completed Form 700s to me. I will send you an email about this. Gail and I will help track this. You send your Form 700 forms, I'm collecting them, and then we will then get them to the county. These will be public records. It is a mandatory requirement. It's how the public is able to essentially vet whether there's a financial interest that a public official has that might affect their decision.
That date again, please.
February 5, 2021. I will also be reminding you separately. Now, if you've never had to fill one of these out, you're lucky. This form is long. Well, the form maybe itself, when you turn it, it might just be a few pages, but the instructions to it are long. It's not incredibly intuitive. I encourage you, your best resources on this, you can call me with questions. You can also go on the FPPC website and gather information. So even though you could call me with questions and I can help you with it, I can't, I'm not your official, I'm not your attorney of record in inviting you personally on your financial disclosure, but I can help you with basic questions about, you know, what community property do I need to disclose my spouse's income, or, you know, what about my residence, that kind of thing. Please reach out to me, and I can help you get through that.
Commissioner Williams has a question.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, well, we need to file it this year. Since the commission, we're part of the commission for 10 years, will we have to continue to file this, or is this year will be it? Just wondering.
Well, that's actually an excellent question. I'm glad you asked it, because oddly, the way the elections code is written, you all remain commissioners until the next commissioners are sworn in, which is 10 years from now. But this is where I think we have to bring a reasonable interpretation to the law. And I believe that my sense is that as long as the commission is active, you should file it annually. And when I say active, if, for example, there were a lawsuit that was filed that challenged the lines, and a court concluded you'd have to redraw the lines, and you were back at it in year 2 or 3. That's what I mean by as long as you're active. So I think that it probably would be reasonable that once the time period to file a challenge to the line drawing has passed, you probably then can file what's called, your leaving office filing, and kind of leave it at that. And you would not be required to continue to file it when you are not active as a commission. That's my off-the-cuff interpretation of that, because I think that it's meaningless to require you to do it when you're not making any decisions. The whole purpose of it is to prevent financial interest in decision making. And if you're not making decisions, then I think.
And I'm assuming that you and or Gayla will let us know if we're required to file it after this initial one in 2021.
Absolutely. I will reach out to you, and I will be your reminder. I'll say, okay, here we are. We're still at it. Please remember to file them. And note at that time, then usually the annual deadline is in March or April of every year. So a financial interest, I won't go into this in much detail because there's all types of financial interests. Again, if you're sitting on a city council, all of these types of interests would make a big difference. Here on the commission, I think that if you have any concerns about a financial interest you have being affected by any decisions that come before this commission, the second thing I'm asking you to take away from this meeting, other than the resist the reply all to emails, is if you have any concerns about a conflict of interest, please contact me. Reach out to me as soon as you have any concerns about it. Of all the things, conflict of interest advice is very situational. It is very specific. The rules are very complicated. It's not the kind of advice that's easily given the last minute question on the dais. When that happens, almost inevitably, my advice would probably be to have you abstain just out of a abundance of caution. But perhaps if you had come earlier, I could evaluate and say, oh no, you don't have to worry about that, and you could participate in the decision. So that's the other takeaway. If you have concerns about conflicts of interest, please reach out to me, because I absolutely can advise you on it. Here are kind of the steps to do when there is a conflict of interest. This is something I would help you do if we ever found ourselves in this situation, so you don't have to commit it to memory, but they do have you leave the room, and in the age of Zoom, they do have you mute and turn off your camera, because the idea is they don't even want you to, in body language, try to influence the decision that's being made. So for Political Reform Act violations, here's Mitch Englander, who unfortunately got caught up in that with developers giving him some junkets to Vegas. So it also carries with it some stiff penalties that you should keep in mind. And with that, I'm gonna, with everyone's consent, we'll just skip and we will reserve to a different time the Public Records Act materials so that unless there are any remaining outstanding questions, we could then move on to the next agenda item.
So Holly, I'm going to just interject. It's been 2 hours. I have that it's 9:04 and I know there's Zoom fatigue. So I think there's a question here, either of taking a break and determining how much longer we can impose on the commissioner's time. Our intent has always been to try to keep these meetings to about 2 hours. We know sometimes they go 2.5. So maybe we could get a little bit of a consensus among the commissioners. One, if you'd like a break and then return or not. I see Commissioner Mendoza's hand.
Question, is there critical material or decisions that must be made tonight, beyond what's taken place thus far?
My agenda items can wait. It's really the legal overview. So go ahead, Holly.
I think that it would be good to at least open the discussion on the bylaws because we had always anticipated that the discussion of the bylaws would take more than one meeting. I do think it is important for the commission to kind of start to settle on those rules of operation earlier. So my recommendation is that you at least have me present the staff report and you can take public comment. And then I know there are going to be questions. I expect there's going to be feedback. And if we could get some feedback this week, we can advance the ball a bit further next week, bringing back a different draft or responding. So I would urge you to try to make a go of at least the first pass through the bylaws, and you don't have to make it all the way through.
And Commissioner Holtzman.
Yeah, I would like a break, and I would like to get through the public comments because I know there are people out there who want to make public comment on this issue. 2 hours has been a lot. I'm just about to finish an Atkins bar you may have seen me eating to stabilize my blood sugar. So everybody might want a break to be able to go to their kitchen and grab something.
No, I understand. Other commissioners? Are people comfortable? Did I see another hand? Commissioner Morales, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was going to say if we can just take a break, just enough time to stretch and do whatever we need to do and come back a little more alert.
So I have that it's 9:07. I'm going to post because it is live on YouTube that we are taking a 5-minute recess. So why don't we try to come back? I have 9:07, but by 9:15. And maybe we can indulge you to spend maybe 30 minutes on the bylaws, just so you can get acclimated, and then we will wrap up the other agenda items if you're okay for another time. Okay, so take your break. I'm going to suggest that people start coming back together so we can begin discussion on bylaws. Maybe get refreshed, stretch your arms. I saw Commissioner Stetcher doing some stretching there. Move and groove. Okay, Holly, I'm going to sort of watch the time because I think we will wear folks out. And
Yes.
if all the commissioners are comfortable, we'll conclude after the bylaws and the public comment on the bylaws, because I think there's one individual who would like to speak on that, so we can hear them tonight. And I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. With my being mindful of the time, I'm going to keep my staff presentation on this very short. I did circulate a staff report and a draft set of bylaws. And then earlier today, I sent around a red line version of the bylaws where I made some minor corrections. But essentially, just from the start, I want to say that although I had highlighted certain portions in the staff report and then literally highlighted certain portions in the draft bylaws, the bylaws are entirely open. So you can discuss items whether they are highlighted or not. And also, I'll let you know that this draft set of bylaws is incorporate a lot of the statutory requirements. There can be two philosophies on bylaws, one where they like to incorporate all those statutory rules and one where they may just want to have a slimmer set of bylaws. I started with the bigger one only because it's often easier to strip away more than to add. But I certainly welcome the input from the commissioners. And what I envision is getting that input and then coming back with a revised set. Even if we don't get all the way through the revisions, I could at least come back with revisions of what you do get through. I think, some of the bigger decisions to make are whether to have alternates or not. I think, I outlined in the report the pros and cons of doing that, of whether to have it. Also, making a decision on what would constitute a vacancy, where someone doesn't resign on their own. And then also a big piece is what kind of requirements or limits would you like to have about commissioners communicating or disclosing communications that they have with folks outside of a public meeting. Again, those I kind of gave you a cafeteria plan of things you could consider, and am open for your input on that. And also setting a time, a regular standing time for the meetings. I think right now with the draft calendar that Gayla had been working on, it looked like regular meetings should be set for the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays of the month. Just a reminder that because you set your regular meeting by resolution, you can always cancel any given regular meeting and you can always schedule special meetings. So even though you set this a schedule, whatever it is that comes out of these discussions, I want you to know you do have the flexibility to cancel any particular regular meeting and schedule any special meeting. One other issue I wanted to talk about too was just a very quick update. Commissioner Holtzman had expressed interest earlier before we had the full commission on potentially incorporating a land acknowledgement for the commission at its meetings. And there was some real interest in that. And so Commissioner Holtzman actually tracked down and realized that the county itself had developed a countywide cultural policy that had as one part of it recognition for Indigenous peoples. And so I have a placeholder in there for that. since the time I've circulated this, I did check in with county staff on the status of that, because to see, as Commissioner Holzman had said, if maybe we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. And I did check with them and heard back just day before yesterday that they anticipate it would coming back to the board with their implementation by the end of this year. So unfortunately, our thought that maybe we could piggyback on that is a little bit shifted, but that's sort of the status on that. I wanted to get that information out there to everybody. And I think with that,
Commissioner Holtzman has a question.
Yes.
It's not really a question, it's a comment. I don't think that necessarily has to be in the bylaws that we shall do that. It could be up to the chair when setting the agenda or something like that. As a custom and practice, not necessarily a rule.
Absolutely understood. So are there any other sort of preliminary clarifying questions before we move to public comment and then bring it back to you for your full discussion? Seeing none, I think, Ty, I know we have at least one public commenter on this item.
So we have one public commenter under the Zoom ID Mark Polak, but name Grace Peng on agenda item 7E on behalf of the League of Women Voters of LA County. And so Grace Peng, I will make you temporarily a panelist. Then please open your mic, and if you're comfortable and able to, share your video. And then you will have 1 minute to make your comment, and I will set the timer momentarily.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Grace Peng, and I'm speaking for the League of Women Voters. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm speaking for the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles County. I'm speaking on agenda number 7, the draft of the bylaws. The agenda packet dropped quite late, just a day before this meeting, and I feel that the public has not had enough sufficient time to review and provide comment on the suggested bylaws, and they also seemed incomplete. They had blank items that were to be filled in later. So I urge you not to adopt the draft bylaws this evening. Because of the rigid 1 minute limit on public comment, I can't welcome you as I would like to, but we're delighted to see the commission formed and ready to begin work. And again, the League of Women Voters would urge you to increase the public comment period from time to greater than 1 minute, especially because we're going to be speaking about such technical matters. It's going to take more than 1 minute to explain a lot of them. Thank you.
And we currently have no other public comments requests.
If I may add, one of the items I was going to suggest at the end of this meeting is really 2 items, because we're very dependent upon building strong partnerships with the League of Women Voters and many, many other community groups, both for the public outreach, for the mapping, for the whole process. So I was going to suggest to you all that you might consider that we have a larger chunk of time at the end of a meeting for community groups to present formally to you and give them more time. I was also going to propose that in February, we might run sort of a workshop, where we bring together the various community groups, we get their input on the public access plan. And again, could have more time working with them, because we are very sensitive to the precious time of everyone. I believe there's a hand up, Commissioner Maeda.
Yes, before the meeting began, I think we got an email saying that there was a written public comment. I don't think it necessarily related to the bylaws, but I wanted to make sure that that got considered at some point.
Holly, do you want to talk about the process? Because we will be posting that written public comment. In the past, in December, we read those aloud. My understanding, Holly, is we're not required to read them aloud.
Right. So as we're in the time of COVID, trying to sort through how to efficiently run meetings online. So we try our best to mimic how a meeting would run in person. And when written comments come in before a meeting, typically, if we were running these in person, those would be gathered and then they would be transmitted to you. Oftentimes, it admittedly is either the day before or the day of, because we try to gather as many as we can and get them to you so you can review them in advance of the meeting. And then those comments, if we were having regular meetings, those comments would not be read aloud. They are part of the record. We depend on the commissioners to read them in advance. So that's what we're trying to mimic here. Comments that come in written in advance of the meeting. We will be, and we think, of course, as time goes on, we're going to be many, many more of those. And you will get a kind of a consolidated packet virtually of those comments. And then any comments that are written that are submitted through the Q&A here, those get read aloud subject to whatever the time limit that is agreed on for that meeting. And so we're kind of moving towards having that process. And that's what we anticipate going forward.
So if I can, so
Yes.
that seems appropriate to me, but I just wanted to get confirmation or reassurance to both the public who is submitting the comments as well as to the commissioners that comments that we receive in a packet or by email ahead of time are going to be part of the public record.
Absolutely, they are. Yes. So now I think it's the time to kind of throw it open for commissioners to decide how they want to go through this. How far you want to try to get, or if you want to have higher level comments now. It's really up to you. Commissioner Wong, I think, has her hand up.
Yes, thank you, Holly. So I just have a question. Did you have a plan of how to go through this, where you're going to go through it, the bylaws one by one? Or did you want us to raise issues or questions that we had for different sections?
I'm open to either approach. So if you've got a method, let it go. It may make sense for us to take it article by article. In which case,
yeah, it seems like if you want to just go article by article to see if anybody has comments, then if I had a comment on a certain section, then would chime in.
Okay. With everybody's agreement, we'll start marching through. We'll see how far we get, and Gayla will flag us down when we start to flag. Starting with,
excuse me, Holly. Commissioner Franklin's hand was up as well.
Yes.
Oh, all I was getting ready to say was that I agree. If Holly could go over article by article, one at a time, and it's my understanding as well as we will not complete this evening, that it will take at least 2 meetings. And the public comment that was made, since the public did not get the agenda until 1 or 2 days ago, if I'm wrong, and they are requesting, or the public comment is indicating that we not ratify any bylaws today, which I don't think we're going to do tonight anyway. So it's my understanding, or I'm assuming, that if we get through as much as we can tonight, considering that it's almost 9:30, I would believe that we could probably go through until 10 o'clock. and then adjourn and then pick up at the next meeting.
That seems like a good plan, and with that in mind, and absolutely there will not be any final ratification. This will be a work in progress, and that will return next week, certainly. And with that in mind, looking at Article 1, it's just a general statement of authority. I did highlight the acronym CRC because there was somebody had raised a concern about should we come up with a better acronym, because that is, I believe, what the state uses, although I'm not entirely sure. So I just highlighted that if anybody had any comments. Otherwise, we'll leave it at that. Yes, Commissioner Holtzman.
A couple things on this. One, I'm not sure if bylaws need to have a statement of authority. Two, I'm not sure that the sentence here really is a statement of authority, because it doesn't mention authority. And then three, in terms of abbreviations, yeah, I think it would be nice to come up with another abbreviation. Our official name is the County of Los Angeles Citizens Redistricting Commission. So I would suggest COLA, C lowercase o, LA, and then a space, and then CRC. This would be the COLA CRC, but we wouldn't have to put in the COLA all the time, as long as everybody knew we were referring to the County of Los Angeles Citizens Redistricting Commission. There's a similar commission in San Diego. We can differentiate that because it's got the word independent instead of citizens. But yeah, to distinguish from the state and from a possible later City of Los Angeles Redistricting Commission, which I would suggest we would call then CI, with little I, LA, CRC. I would suggest on the abbreviation it would be COLA space CRC. But that's, nothing we're going to decide tonight. But as long as you brought it up, I thought I'd bring that up. So anyway, if we're going to have a statement of authority, let's have the statement say where our authority comes from instead of saying why we're formed.
Okay, any other input on that one? Do you have some suggested language, Commissioner Holtzman?
No, because I think we can do without it, but.
I think this statement is clear. It points to the statute that creates the commission, and if you read the statute, it defines the authority, so I think it's probably not the one that we need to spend the most time discussing, Article 1. But.
Commissioner Morales.
Yes, Commissioner Morales.
Yeah, I was gonna say just on the COLA means something different in Spanish. So maybe just CLA, CRC might do just fine. But I do agree, like, let's call it what it is. County of Los Angeles, CRC.
I'm going to Google that later.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, let's move on to Article 2, the purpose. That just generally describes the role. It also describes in that last sentence that it's independent from the influence of the board. In drafting that, I just thought it was good to call that out in the bylaws. Yes, Commissioner Holtzman.
Sorry, but I couldn't find the language for a lot of this paragraph in the actual statute. I would prefer that we quote the statute for something like this, and by section number and subsection, whatever. I didn't see anything about the rebalancing and all, increasing accountability of elected officials. I think we should just use the statutory language here.
Any other input on that one?
Commissioner Maeda.
I don't know whether any other commissioner, how they reacted to this line, but the idea of adjusting the boundaries, does that suggest more of a limitation on our power than is the case. I mean, it's my understanding we can draw whatever boundaries we want to. I don't have a strong feeling about it, but it just makes it sound like we might just be tinkering around the edges based on what we currently have.
We can certainly change the just to draw. I don't know if that would.
I personally would prefer it.
Yes, okay. Any other input on Article 2? All right. Commissioner Wong, did you have your?
No, I thought we were on Article 3. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, Article 3. I'll call on you first then, knowing that you're reading ahead.
Yeah, I guess I was jumping ahead. Sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
For section 3.0, 3.0, let's see, 3.07, I think, where it's talking about translation. I think you're talking about interpretation, because usually, interpretation refers to kind of providing oral language services, which is what I think that you're referring to if you're referring to providing an interpreter at a public meeting. So, because translation usually refers to translation of written materials. And so I guess I would just change that to interpretation. And also, I don't know if we want to put in here somewhere where if somebody needs materials in other languages, how we are expecting to handle that.
Just for context, and certainly we can change translation to interpretation. For context, the language here in section 3.07 is lifted directly from the statute, which is not to say that in our bylaws we can't change it, but to provide context there. And I think Gayla has, do you have some information about the written translations? To be clear, this provision was for providing for the interpretation at a meeting.
So next week, I'll go over the calendar. And there are going to be 7 public hearings in the spring, which has to happen before you start drawing any maps. Then you get the software, we get the census data, people start drawing maps, the public starts submitting plans, you start reviewing those plans, you have them come and present to you. That'll be probably late August, September, based on our estimates of when we might get the census data. You'll have 2 more public hearings in October, probably around that time period, and then which will be on your proposed plans. You can put out 1 or 2 options or whatever. And then by November, you should come together on what the final redistricting plan is so that it can then be documented and issued by December 15th. The 2 public hearings were required by law to have interpreters present if we're asked within 24 hours. And there's some, I think 7 or 8 threshold languages. And I have reached out to a translation service to provide those services. We'll go into this more with the public access plan. We will have press kits, which we will have translated written documents into multiple languages that would then have content for distribution dissemination. And again, we'd do those in multiple languages. The CRC website will be using Google Translate, which opens up many more languages to give greater access to members of our county. So does that answer your question, Commissioner Wong?
As part of it, I think we might want to provide better language access for the public, but I don't want to try to take up time here about that. But I may have suggestions as to how to do that that I can propose later.
Okay, that'd be great. We love your input I know many of you will be very helpful when we get into that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great.
Any other comments in Article 3? Commissioner Maeda?
Just in 3.09, again, and adjusting to drawing.
Okay. And I think Commissioner Holtzman, I saw your hand up.
Hello. So there's one thing that's really confusing about this Article 3, and that's that it uses so much language from the statute, but it doesn't use the same numbering system as the statute. Numbers and letters are all different. So again, let me state my strong preference that we quote statutory language and cite it by the same numbering system and lettering system that the statute uses. Because I mean, a lot of this maps the statute sections, but with different letters and numbers. So maybe by next time we could, get them to match somehow, or just say, as stated in this section, blah, blah.
Okay.
And again, I don't even know how much of a statement, if the statement needs to be this long. You, in your presentation, said there are two schools of thought here. Do you put everything in, or you just reference the statute? So I could go either way, but I think I prefer the shorter way, but leave that to group discussion, obviously.
Yes, Commissioner Stetcher.
Just to clarify, Commissioner Holtzman, you're not talking about changing 3.01A subparagraph 1. You're talking about within those citing the statutory section where the language is taken from, right?
No, I'm saying renumber it so it matches the statute. Because
But then it has no structure of its own. Then it's no longer 3.01 because in the statute it's 125.6.
You just say as stated in statute, and then cite the statute instead of subdividing it with all these crazy numbers and letters. I mean, the whole article can be that way. Because you want to be able to look at the bylaws and the statute and go between them easily.
Commissioner Sara Soto, your hand is up.
On that, I'm still formulating my thought around this, but I think in my initial reading of the bylaws, I think of what is a way to ensure that the language is accessible to community. And so, what is the compromise between using code and using language that is accessible and understood by a broader community?
And that might augur, or that might suggest we go with the simpler version and we only reference, we don't even quote. We don't quote at all any of the statute. And so there may be a preference to go with the shorter version where we're just talking about the rules that the commission itself is setting up without reference, or with minimal reference, quotation of the other statutes. And so what?
I mean, I think I agree with Commissioner Soto that the bylaws, they read in a simpler format without lots of cross-referencing embedded in the actual sentence language, but you can always just put the state code, state law section at the end of each one, right? So 3.09A, the plan shall be subject to referendum the same manner as ordinances, give the code section, election code section 21501A or whatever, right? So I think there's a way to have it flow as simply as it does as currently drafted, while still including those cross references to the state elections code if that feels important. I think the reference at the outset of the paragraph is sufficient, but understand that others might want to be able to easily reference the specifics of the state elections code.
Commissioner Williams' hand.
I like the simpler version, and I'm thinking that if someone really wants to go and look up the state code, we provided them the where it's located, and they can go ahead and they're free to do that, because it wouldn't be, I'm not sure if they would be looking it up by article. They may want to just look at the whole statute. So I like keeping it simple and doing perhaps just referencing it at the end of the statement or so. So I want to keep it simple is where I'm headed.
So I think as we continue to go through, I think we just have a few minutes still available to us. What I can do is when we return next time, I can have a version of these that is sort of the stripped down version that incorporates to the extent that removing the statutory language takes out any comments I've gotten, that takes care of that. But to the extent those those sections remain, I would incorporate the comments I've had so far. And that way you can kind of see both and go from there. So I don't know if there were any more specific comments on Article 3. If not, we might go to Article 4, which dealt with membership and includes sort of the option for alternates.
Commissioner Holtzman's hand is up.
Yes.
Just to be clear, Holly, are you saying you're accepting offline comments between meetings that will guide your revision?
I will. You know, certain things I can capture. If it's a comment such as, I don't like the idea of alternates, take it out. I mean, I'm gonna leave the idea of alternates in for the full discussion. So you can certainly make those comments, and depending on the nature of them, I can put them in the draft. Just as for example, you know, the placeholder I had for the land acknowledgement was in there, you know. So.
Thank you.
Okay, any comments on membership, or was there anybody wanting to kind of kick off a discussion on whether or not to have alternates designated before there's a vacancy, or just simply to await whether a vacancy even arises?
Commissioner Franklin.
Yes, I would, looking at section 4.09, alternates, I see within 60 days of being sworn in, that CRC shall review the remaining candidates in the subpool of applicants and shall appoint up to 2 additional. I would suggest 3, not 2, 3. And also, I would also suggest instead of 60 days, 30 days. Because we are asking, they can't vote, but they should attend the meetings and be able to understand what has transpired if and when they're called upon to take a commissioner's place due to illness or death or some other reason. So my recommendation is to add 3 alternates and to identify 3 alternates and then have it done within 30 days.
Commissioner Williams' hand was up.
Yeah, when I read this, one of the things that stood out for me wasn't section, well, an issue with section 4.09 and 4.10 is that there was a lot of attention paid to representation. We want so many people from each district, a breakdown based on, certain metrics. And I'm wondering if we just select 2 alternates or 3 alternates, do we lose that representation that we felt was so important in setting this up? So say someone is unable to continue from District 2. If we just have general alternates, does District 2 in some way lose some type of representation? So I don't know how to do it, but it's looking at, I guess, a vacancy being filled as it arises, and maybe identifying someone from a particular pool. It just seemed like a lot of attention was paid to that in the selection of members, and it was something that's written into the commission. So that's my suggestion, finding a way that we continue to honor that.
Commissioner.
Bento. Commissioner Bento?
So just one suggestion that I would make, I think something to consider would be maybe looking at one alternate for each district. And then if something changes within that district, that is the alternate that fills it. So that's the deciding factor. What I'm just trying to say this is, if we just pick 2 or 3, well, what happens if one district loses someone and that district then doesn't have proper representation? So I just wanted to put the commission to think about that in terms of, and that would be an easy selection process as to who would actually fill that opening seat, versus us trying to decide of the 2, which one would we vote on. And I think that might put us in an awkward situation. So it's just something to consider.
Commissioner Obregon?
I guess what I'm questioning is the extra commissioners are, would they be expected to attend the meetings as kind of like in a jury, that they're just the alternates and they're supposed to remain quiet until they get tapped? That's kind of a little bit, I don't know, inglorious, I guess, not for them to be part of it, but not be able to participate. So 5 might be a big number. I get it. The other, I understand the logic, but also the 5 districts probably will be redrawn. And of course, what was the 5 districts is not going to be the 5 districts. So I think in selecting the second batch of 6, I think we kind of looked at people that were kind of close to the lines and kind of maybe zip codes that were almost touching both sides. And if we can, I don't know, keep it to 3, I think 5 might be a big number, and asking these alternates to be so noble and probably not get used at all, keeping that number small. But I do understand what we need alternate, because 9, we need 9 no matter what. And that might be 2 or 3 people might not be here, and we need 9 for a quorum. So we do definitely need some alternates. I'm guessing 3. Thank you.
You have Commissioner Mendoza and Commissioner Holtzman.
Was there going to be an answer to the question as to whether or not the alternates were going to sit by passively and watch like an alternative juror, or are they going to participate actively but not have a voting say?
That really can be a decision of the commission in terms of sort of a policy on what they want to do with that. But that's part of the consideration. The one thing I do want to comment on that Commissioner Obregon mentioned was at least as proposed here, a commissioner, an alternate would not be seated unless there was a permanent vacancy, as distinct from temporary filling in on a meeting by meeting basis to help meet a quorum is the proposal.
I would say then that any alternate, that 3 or 5 or whatever the number is, if there are any, would be influencing the process. And I'm not saying that's right, wrong, or indifferent, but if they're allowed to participate, that's what they would be doing. So that's something to be considered too.
Commissioner Wong?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think that it might be hard to find people who would be willing to be alternates if they didn't have some ability to participate in some ways. And actually, if they did, if they were required to attend the meetings, that's a big commitment. And I would be interested in, I understand they can't have a voting, they can't vote, but I would be interested in their opinions anyway. And I think they should be allowed to participate in some way more than just sitting there and listen. As to the number 3 or 5, I doubt if there probably will be 5 vacancies, but it seems like it would be good to have at least 3, and then we can talk about the number. It seemed like going through the selection process, there were some candidates that were very close, to being selected as commissioners. And so hopefully, if we could offer them an alternate position, they would be willing to participate and provide their kind of expertise to the discussion. And I would be interested in that myself, personally.
Let me just mention, it is 9:56. I said I'd be the timekeeper. So you may want to think about how you want to transition. I'll also provide a point of information that may be useful. The 46 individuals on the list of 60 most qualified were all sent a letter from the executive office indicating that they had not been selected. In it was a paragraph that asked, if you're interested in being an alternate, please let us know. To date, I've only received 4 names. If you wanted to have more, we could certainly go out and survey them more focused on it, but that's just something for you to keep in mind. See, Commissioner Holtzman's hand is up.
Thank you, Gayla.
Also, Stetcher, your hand up too? We have Holtzman first and maybe Stetcher.
And
I used the...
Okay, here we go, real fast. This is, since we are reaching the end of the evening, I do want to recommend to my fellow commissioners that they check in with what's going on with the San Diego Commission, specifically the bylaws that they have already adopted, because I know they took a different approach to alternates in their adopted bylaws. So perhaps we all can do that before the next meeting, or have them prepared as part of the agenda packet of the San Diego bylaws shown to us.
What was their approach?
I don't remember exactly, so I don't want to misquote it right now. Sorry.
I believe they do not have alternates.
Commissioner Soto's hand was up, followed by Commissioner Orpanella Segura.
What about my hand? I'm gonna. Okay.
I wanted to echo Commissioner Williams' point around the care that has been taken to ensure that there is fair representation in the commission of each of the current districts. And so I think that can be challenging if we selected alternates now versus I think going with some version of option 2.
Commissioner Orpanella Segura.
I'm not sure if it's disclosable, but those 4 names that you received indicating that they are interested in being Oh my gosh.
Alternates.
Alternates. Thank you. Sorry, it's been a long day. Alternates. Can we know what those names are? I'm not sure if that's legally possible. And my second question was, did the letter reference a deadline in which they can indicate whether they're interested in that?
No, I don't believe there was a deadline in there. So as I said, we could always go back out and reach out to them. Holly, do you see a problem with me sharing the names?
No, I don't see a problem.
One was, and a couple of these sort of had question marks by them, so we'd have to go out and confirm. Molly Milligan would certainly consider, and I think she was among your group there. Vinod Kashyap was extremely honored and very enthusiastic. John Mergurian was also very supportive, and I think he was also in your list, and Dan Woods, who was in your top list, but he also had a question mark.
Commissioner Stetcher. Oops. And then Maeda.
Thank you. I'll be really brief. I'm impressed by everyone's commitment. I don't think we need alternates. I'm willing to go along with majority opinion, but I suspect we could, under the worst of circumstances, lose one or two people and still be able to function very well. And I think the whole process of lining up alternates and keeping them engaged in deciding on their responsibilities and their degree of participation may just bog us down. So consider not having them.
Commissioner Maeda?
It's an interesting suggestion that we just heard. My concern, though, is the quorum is one thing, and maybe we can still make quorum without too much trouble, even if we lose one or two. But if we lose one or two of the Republican members, that potentially could be a big problem, even though we start out with the correct number, or at least reasonably close to the parity in the county. But I would hate to get to the finish line and having no Republicans or really only one Republican. I think it would be useful to have some alternates and specifically include at least one Republican among the alternates. Perhaps if there are some districts where there's only two, I think there's only one district that has two. But if there are some of those, maybe fill those in as well, just to have them in our pocket. But I do think we probably will need to, or I would suggest that we ask them to participate. We invite them to participate, but without a vote.
Commissioner Franklin.
Yes.
I think Orpanella Segura's hand was up, and then Franklin.
Oh, sorry.
Of the four, were there any African American?
No. I can look it up. I think Vinod Kashyap would be possibly Indian. The other three, I believe, are white. Commissioner Orpanella Segura, I'm sorry, we took you out of order.
Not a problem. It was a similar comment to Commissioner Maeda.
And you do have the list of the 60 in the draft report I sent out. So that's the best way to confirm what they put on their applications. So Holly, you're at 10:02.
Yes.
And we really closed on these people's good nature, I think. But I think it started the conversation, the bylaws, which is really, really healthy. So
right.
Let me turn it over to you to wrap this up.
Right. I think, I've gotten direction. We don't need to take a vote on this. I'm going to come back with the revised version. That's going to be a stripped down, simpler version. And what remains, I will tweak per the comments tonight. I sense the issue of alternates remains open, so I'm just going to still leave those options on there. And of course, I won't touch the meeting issues or those things that we haven't gotten to, except to simplify them. And so I think with that, we can conclude this item. I've got direction, and we can go on from here.
Commissioner Soto's hand just went up.
Just a clarifying question. In between now and the next meeting, when you will share, or prior to that, when you'll share an updated version of these bylaws, can we send you questions or comments?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
will share, I'll email. You probably should have my contact information already on some prior emails that Gayla has probably copied me on, and she distributed the agenda packet. But I'll also send a separate one. You can always feel free to email or call me.
Commissioner Williams?
Just quickly, I did not get you said you sent out another copy of the bylaws today that were redlined or something. I didn't get that. So.
Okay, I'll check and make sure.
Maybe I'll double check, but I wasn't looking for it either. So that may be part of it.
Right. Yeah. I will make sure that I don't have any typos on your email on that group I used.
We have a motion to adjourn, and that means we skip matters not to be considered for future agendas and the other items under 7. Commissioner Maeda?
So move to adjourn.
Seconded?
Seconded.
We require roll call for this, Holly, to adjourn?
On this one, I'm going to say no. We don't require a roll call.
So I just want to say good evening. I'm sorry this meeting was longer. We really look forward. We will be meeting next Wednesday at 7 p.m. and we'll be providing you with the agenda. We had it posted last time on Friday prior to the meeting, but we will get it to you as quickly as we can. Commissioner Holtzman, you have a closing word before we adjourn? You're on mute.
Unmuted. Just to let my fellow commissioners know, I did early on in this meeting send in to commission staff a PDF with a list of issues I'd like to see considered in future meetings. So perhaps we can distribute that list and vote on whether or not to consider those items at our next meeting.
We can add that to that agenda item.
Thank you.
With that, have a good evening. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Welcome
Good night.
aboard.